NunatuKavut Inuit have occupied and had a special relationship with the land, the ice and waters of our territory long before the arrival of Europeans.
Tonight, the NunatuKavut Community Council gathered in Ottawa to defend an MOU signed with the Government of Canada.
It's about reconciliation and decolonizing health.
Hundreds gathered in Winnipeg to discuss the direction of Indigenous health transformation.
The most important thing is, we want people to understand that what they're doing is having a positive effect.
And the Jim Brady Medal of Excellence is handed out in Saskatoon. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The president of the NunatuKavut Community Council, or NCC, appeared in federal court in Ottawa to defend a memorandum of understanding signed with the federal government. NCC President Todd Russell held a press conference Thursday morning. The NCC represents about 6,000 people in southern Labrador who say they are Inuit. It signed a memorandum of understanding with the federal government in 2019 for the purpose of entering discussions regarding rights recognition and self-determination, and to support a land claim submission that overlaps Innu lands. On Tuesday, the Innu Nation and Indigenous leaders from Labrador and Quebec publicly declared that NCC members are not Indigenous and are asking the federal court to rule against the MOU. Russell says the allegations are false and an example of lateral violence.
It is particularly egregious when we hear such misinformation come from members of our own family, our relatives. NunatuKavut Inuit have occupied and had a special relationship with the land, the ice and waters of our territory long before the arrival of Europeans.
To Winnipeg now, where this week the Southern Chiefs Organization hosted a First Nations health gathering. Sierra Bettens has more on what some of the panelists spoke about.
In Winnipeg, hundreds gathered to discuss Indigenous health transformation at a Southern Chiefs Organization conference. One of the panels of the two-day conference focused on decolonizing mental health. A cross-section of experts agree colonialism has caused serious mental health issues among Indigenous people. Issues like violence and suicide.
That colonization process is one that's ongoing ever since that mind was developed. It's ongoing to this very day.
Ed Connors is a psychologist from Ganawake Mohawk Territory. He works with Indigenous youth on suicide prevention and life promotion.
The youth basically were saying to us, we're losing our culture, we're losing our ways, we're losing our teachings, we're losing our languages. And as we do that, we basically don't know, in essence, where we've come from. We don't know who we are.
Albert McLeod, a longtime human rights activist, spoke about the mental health of 2S LGBTQ+ individuals. He believes the homophobia and transphobia they experience is connected to colonialism.
I think fear in colonization, fear of loss of control by colonizers in the 21st century is really driving this anti-trans, anti-2S LGBTQ movement, and it's nostalgia for the past, and we can't go backward in our society. We can only go forward as a democratic society.
A 2023 report by the Trevor Project on mental health and well-being of Indigenous LGBTQ young people in the United States found that over half of Indigenous 2S LGBTQ+ youth reported seriously considering suicide in the past year. Nearly a quarter attempted suicide. New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, and Alberta have implemented policies restricting gender expression in schools for trans and gender-diverse youth. McLeod says there are ways to promote inclusion of Indigenous and Two-Spirit LGBTQ+ people within policymaking.
Create Two-Spirit specific governance models like councils that guide and advise and have, opportunities to promote policy, to promote, local legislation and just their ideas about health and healing and wellness and employment as well.
He adds that he values how forward-looking the conference is.
It's about reconciliation and decolonizing health. And, as Indigenous people across the Americas, we've done that for generations. Now it's time to actualize it and live it and experience it as we move into the future.
Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Still in Manitoba, one man is dead after a house fire on the Barons Land First Nation in the northern part of the province on Tuesday night. Barren Lands First Nation is a Cree community 900 kilometers north of Winnipeg and 320 kilometers northwest of Thompson, their closest service center. Thompson RCMP received a report of the fire at 11:15 p.m. Tuesday night. They were told 3 people were inside of the home and 1 was unaccounted for. The local fire department responded and were able to enter the home around 3:30 a.m. Wednesday morning. They found one male who was pronounced dead. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Barren Lands lost another person to a house fire earlier this year on New Year's Day. The federally owned Trans Mountain Pipeline has nearly completed its long-delayed and costly expansion. According to the company, the pipeline's final cost will be about $34 billion. In 2018, the federal government bought the pipeline for $4.5 billion, expecting the final price to complete it to be $7.4 billion. The expansion will nearly triple the amount of oil being sent from Alberta to the BC coast to be shipped in oil tankers for international markets. Final testing is ongoing with full operations beginning by Canada Day. 890,000 barrels of oil a day will be transported by the completed pipeline. Canada's Auditor General Karen Hogan released 2 reports this week, one on First Nations housing and another on First Nations and Inuit policing. To the surprise of no one, the federal government received failing grades in both investigations. For more, our Truth and Politics panel is here to discuss. Sneegon Sinclair is a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Jennifer Lewitz is a policy analyst with War Shield. Jennifer, Sneegon, thanks for being with us. 2 Auditor General reports this week when it comes to First Nations and Inuit peoples. Jennifer, we keep getting the same message every time that First Nations people are living in third world housing conditions. Why haven't things improved?
I think a lot of bureaucracy. I had a chance to read the report, and to me, it sounds like we've just overinflated the bureaucracy now to the point where we don't even know what's going on at the ground because it's just a bunch of management happening in Ottawa. We're hearing about the overcrowding not getting better. The mold strategy that was implemented in 2008 is no longer being used, and there's no reason as to why. And that's just what happens when you create massive government. We have 2 Indigenous related departments now as of 2017, and it just sounds like Ottawa is having a hard time administering these programs on the ground when they just have big problems back in Ottawa.
Yeah, Sneegon, 20 years, I believe they're saying it's been the same situation here. Is there a realistic solution?
In 2016, right after this Liberal government was voted in for the first time, they committed about $8 billion in the budget to First Nations housing infrastructure. Actually, all the things that the Kelowna Accord, Paul Martin's Kelowna Accord, had promised to do. That was not enough money, as the Assembly of First Nations has pointed out. You need upwards and near $14-15 billion to really deal with the issue of housing just alone, not all the other things. And so it just tells you that wasn't enough money to begin with. I completely concur with what Jennifer said in terms of this overinflation of government. But I also, in my glass half full way of seeing this, we're seeing government that cares for the first time on this issue, that is trying to deal with this issue. And perhaps they bit off a lot more than they could chew.
Jennifer, the Auditor General also releasing a report on First Nations and Inuit policing, something that's been talked about a lot in the last few years. Money allocated to this not being spent. Your thoughts on the Auditor's policing report?
Well, we know that there's programs that the federal government has tried to administer, and the RCMP were not able to fill those positions. The actual First Nations policing legislation hasn't been tabled yet. I know we've heard that they've been doing consultation work with AFN, haven't seen that yet. The only thing that does concern me about the federal government now coming in after an 8-year tired government trying to bring on First Nations policing is that I just don't think they're equipped enough to handle it. And I just don't know what that's going to look like. You know, we've been seeing, last year we saw that chiefs in Ontario needed to take the government to court to get the money from public safety that was owed to them to continue funding this program. So I just don't think that you can bring on something as heavy as First Nations policing, underfund it, or not be prepared to deal with what that looks like, 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
All right. Niigaan, Auditor General Karen Hogan saying that the federal government and the RCMP's actions not aligned with building trust in First Nations. What's the solution there?
That's probably the most obvious statement you could possibly make. The fact is, policing is a crisis on First Nations, also urban Indigenous communities. There was a big report that was released about the downtown Winnipeg just this past week of the Police Accountability Coalition. The fact is that Indigenous communities at all levels are over-policed and under-resourced. And when I say over-policed, meaning they are not building those relationships, the kind of crisis situations that are talked about. The fact is this government's running out of time. We probably seen the last days of Justin Trudeau. Whether this has the kind of political willpower that it will take, the energy that it'll take, the things Jennifer are talking about, to build even more bureaucracy from just our first question, and they don't handle it particularly well. So I don't have a lot of faith. However, the national chief has made this a priority for her. So maybe there will be some movement because, as we all know, she has very deep Liberal ties.
Jennifer, Niigaan, we'll leave it there for this week. Appreciate you both taking the time for us.
Yeah, Miigwech.
The Arctic Winter Games, one of my favorite sporting events, wrapped up last week. But for one would-be participant, it was a missed opportunity. That story and more after the break.